Hello and welcome to Full-Time Live on the Fulham's YouTube channel, Facebook page and Twitter account. Fulham have just been confirmed that they're going back down to the Championship after a 2-0 loss to Burnley at home. We're not going to bore you with all the connotations that surround this relegation and what happens next. We'll leave that for the guys on the podcast tomorrow so they can sort of digest tonight's game a bit more, digest today's season and sort of analyse where we sort of go from here. What we'll be doing is we'll be deep diving just into tonight's game and sort of where things went wrong tonight and sort of how tonight probably wasn't that surprising to anyone else watching that game. I think it was a fairly obvious performance to see what was happening. I think 2-0 Burnley or 1-0 Burnley probably was an obvious scoreline to predict. But joining me, Don Betts, on this is Jack Kelly.
Hello. Welcome back to the Championship.
And the lovely Drew Heatley.
Hi, guys.
So if we start with sort of the team lineup that Scott Parker picked today, obviously, you know, we start with a sort of the 4-2-3-1 system we've been using. Not too many changes. Obviously, Olorana dropped to the bench and Anthony Robinson came in at left back. Obviously, still a Harrison Reed, so it was Anguissa and Lamina in the middle of the park, and then you had Bobby Reed, Lookman and Cavallero in behind Mitrović up front instead of Josh Maja. But as I said, I think early on in the game, Jack, you could just sort of see where this game was going to go.
Well, yeah, the whole game was just the story of the season. A lot of the ball, a lot of passing, and then getting to the final third and then just nothing. I think it was 21 shots, 3 on target tonight. Just pretty much summed up the whole season. And look, I think playing at Craven Cottage has become extremely predictable for Fulham, and that's why we've struggled to score goals. And ultimately, it's why we've been relegated. And I think now we're going to have to really just do a bit of soul searching and come back in August. But yeah, tonight was just the same old, really, Dom.
Yeah, I think tonight was exactly how I sort of predicted it to go. I think I spoke to Jack off air saying I sort of accepted this. You know, if we look at every time we've actually been relegated in the last 3 times in the last 5 seasons or whatever, or 6 seasons or whatever it is, 14, 19 and 21. Like Stoke, I think everyone had sort of accepted it was going to happen. I think the most devastating game in that season was probably when we bottled that 2-0 lead at home to Hull and it finished 2-2. 2 seasons ago, I think people probably accepted relegation after we got battered at home by Bournemouth in November or whenever it was. I wasn't even at the game at Watford. I think it was my first night on holiday, and I woke up to see Fulham have been relegated. And obviously this season we haven't been able to go to games, Drew. But we just didn't seem to try to do anything different today to try and sort of change what's been in this poor run of form ever since the Liverpool away game, which you won. I mean, we've only picked up 1 point since then, which was the draw against Arsenal a couple of weeks ago. Yeah,
it's quite the terrible run, isn't it? After we drew it level on points with Brighton, albeit they had their game in hand. We sleepwalk into today's game through, I think, believing the general sort of narrative that we're already down. Obviously, tonight, if we'd won, it would have just been postponed and inevitable, and you could see that in the body language of the players. And Parker's sort of stubbornness again with the same old. You know, he plays different puzzle pieces in and tries to fit it into the same puzzle, and it's just, you know, at what point all of the inquests, as you say, will be to come. It's not our place to do it tonight, but you could see that we were just sleepwalking into the game, and there was not going to be anything different about tonight than any other night. I actually thought we started. Having said everything I've just said, I thought we started okay in the first 10 minutes, but again, nothing to trouble them whatsoever. You know, you keep the ball for a little bit. There's a little bit of movement. You're moving the ball around a bit, but really, we're just a toothless animal, and we have been all season. You know, there's a reason why they give 1 point for a draw and 3 for a win. You know, it's to separate the wheat from the chaff, and we have been all season, sadly, chaff.
Yeah, I think if we look at the first half, there was obviously the opportunity which Cavallero sort of I think it was Cavallero who whipped in, and then obviously I think it was Tarkowski who just took it away from Adama Lookman, who was sort of sliding it at the back post. But I wouldn't say we had many clear-cut opportunities in the first half, let alone the game. So I think, as I said, as soon as Burnley got that first goal, you knew where the game was going, and that's sort of. I mean, to be fair, that's just been the tale under Fulham under Scott Parker last season and this season. Is if we don't score the first goal, we're not going to get anything from the game. And, you know, if you look at the way Burnley are not just set up as a team today, but the way Burnley as a club, there's something teams like Fulham, West Brom, Norwich, Watford, teams who've gone up and down, should be looking to emulate in regard to, you know, sticking with a manager, building around a stability model as opposed to all taking risk with, for example, the loan signings. For example, seven loan signings or 8 loan signings, whatever it was. They if you look at Burnley, you can most namely name the team they're going to play. And these players have been part of it for years. And, we saw today it's set up in their 4-4-2, which you often see. I know sometimes they play more of a 5-4-1 sometimes. But, our defence was getting rings run down by Mitrović, who was who, to be honest, hasn't had this sort of much of a run in starting games. I know it's down to Ashley Barnes' injury. But, since probably in the Championship back in 2015. It's been 6 years since he's sort of had a good run of games. But him and Chris Wood were all over us today. Somehow Chris Wood has turned into peak 2006 Adriano in the last sort of 5 weeks. I don't really know how that's happened. But yeah, I think Burnley showed to us today what being a solid team is. I know if you look at the blueprint for a promoted team, you can look at someone like Leicester City, obviously with the league win in 2016, and them fighting for European football now. But the difference in the way Burnley had such a cohesive unit. And Fulham simply aren't that, Jack. Today, to me, it didn't seem like a team. It just seemed sort of a load of individuals on the pitch who know they're not going to be here next season. Yeah,
you could argue about Burnley extremely well disciplined, well drilled. They have a good they have a good ethos, and they get the job done. And I mean, they were speaking before the game that Burnley have been on 2 points after 7 games or something, and they don't panic, and they always know that they're going to get out of it just because they do the basics right. And ultimately, they've got some terrific wins, especially away from home recently, including tonight. And yeah, we look like a team of individuals. And yet again, it's just us in the final third that's let us down. And I'm not really seeing. I mean, we saw trends of this last season, the back end of last season. We looked very toothless going forward, and ultimately just snuck into the Premier League based off a very, very decent playoff campaign. But yet again, I think 25 goals scored all season. We looked good at times this season playing as a team, but since the writing's been on the wall, we've just basically panicked, and yeah, it just hasn't really worked out at all. And it's been disappointing. And you compare it back to 2 seasons ago, what was worse? I think obviously 2 seasons ago, because we were at the games. This doesn't hurt as bad. I'm not going to go to sleep tonight, and cry my eyes out because it's been coming, and we're not at the grounds to experience it, and we've just been poorly managed from top to bottom since September.
Yeah,
but look, you look at the Burnley side that came tonight. The difference between us is that they have an identity. No matter how grim you might think it is, they have an identity. When they signed Chris Wood, I laughed because I'm just like, Chris Wood, that's such a typical Burnley signing in terms of it's very underwhelming, very under the radar. But actually, you've seen since he came, that's exactly the type of player they needed. He fits perfectly. He's kept them up with the amount of goals he's got in the last 6 games. We've got next to piss all goals in the last 6 games, next to piss all goals all season. There's 2 sides to it. There's the Tony Khan side, the recruitment side, and then there's the Scott Parker side and the coaching side. And I don't think either have been up to scratch this season. Certainly tonight was our. We've already said it. In a nutshell, our season was this evening with this stubbornness from Parker, this unadventurous side of Parker. I know it all just in the second half, it just got absolutely ridiculous. I think at that point he's, it's like when you're playing Tetris and you're about to lose and it's coming up to the top of the screen and you just start throwing all cautions out the window and seeing sticks, and it was just too little, too late. It was tokenism. It was ridiculous. And Parker, for me, I've backed him all season, but actually, when you look at it as a whole, has he been good enough? I don't know. And there's there are going to be people on both sides of the divide that I've just spoken about. I even brought myself a little tinfoil hat today to throw out some truth juice about Tony Khan and the like. But I'm not going to bother. I'm going to let that happen on the pod because God knows we're going to need the listens because nobody's going to want to watch it, or nobody's probably watching this. But tonight was anyone even watching the game? I paid £10 for it, and I didn't even want to be there. I'm sat on my sofa on my own, can't even get the bloody beer out because I'm thinking, what's the point in sitting on my own on the sofa and drinking? No, it's bollocks. This season has been, from start to finish, has been an absolute disaster. I'm fuming about paying £10 a game. So I can only imagine what it'd be like spending £40 a game and getting 9 home goals for your troubles. So, I'm glad that they shoved the pillow over our head tonight and finally ended it. And let's just have a bloody break from Fulham and from football for a few weeks. Unless you're a fan, in which case you just have it carrying on.
Mm.
The summer. Sorry, guys, carry on.
No, I think that's the point you've been making here. It's just like Parker, when it comes to fans want him in, fan want him out. I would have said after that Liverpool game, 90% of fans would have been like, Parker can get us out of this. But to only get 1 point out of the following 7 games after that is a disgrace. Any manager, no matter whether you're in a relegation battle, whether you're in a title race, whether you're going for the top 4, whatever, if you only get 1 point from 7 games, and it's not like it's been the toughest run-in or fixtures he could have had. I understand we played Manchester City. I understand we played Chelsea. But apart from that, the rest of the teams are arguably teams you can look at that we could get points against. I look at the game at home to Leeds, at home to Wolves, away to Aston Villa. And, I think realistically, the Aston Villa game is where people sort of realise, right, this isn't happening. You go 1-0 up and then completely capitulate in the last 15 minutes of the game. But going back to the second half performance, Jack, although we brought on attacking players, like we brought on Josh Maggio, we brought on Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I don't know why. And we sort of tried to bring on all our attacking players, but there still wasn't any identity to the way we were trying to play. We were sort of getting the ball in wide positions and either trying to get the ball into Mitrović, which he only got about 1 good ball of service today, or pop shots on the edge of the area. And even when our players coming from a wide position, I'm thinking of chances for Lookman and Loftus-Cheek down the left-hand side, they're still trying to put it into the box when they can clearly just have a shot across goal. I understand you can point to a lot of different things this season when it comes to Tony Khan, when it comes to recruitment, obviously, people will point at. But there comes to a point where tactically, and these players we do know have individual quality, not making the right decisions. You can't just blame it on, for example, that Loftus-Cheek chance near the end when he should just hit it across goal. You can't blame that on the board and people higher up in the club. That's simply either the coach or the player himself just not being good enough.
And also, we've got in the comments here, Jonah McGowan, how can you blame Parker? We haven't had a striker all season, Tony Khan's fault. And that, to me, is just an absolute, in a nutshell, the reductive nature of this argument between, you're either Tony Khan or you're in, or you're Tony Khan out, or whatever. We've had a striker in our squad who got us 26 goals last season, lest we forget. Now,
he's a top goal scorer in all 4 English divisions last year.
Goal scorer in all 4 English divisions. Now, whose job is it to make sure, if you are dealt a certain hand, rightly or wrongly, and we'll leave that debate for later, if you're dealt a certain hand and you're a manager, it's your job to try and work out how to make the puzzle pieces that you've got work. The season changed for me, Leicester away when we won with 5 at the back. And Parker then was bolstered by this. And then in his head, his stubbornness, he did not change for the rest of the season. And it was our greatest, people always point to that Swansea 3-0, where, you just wish we bloody lost it. I just wish we bloody lost to Leicester, because then we might have had a bit more of a flexibility in our lineup, a little bit of flexibility in Scott Parker's tactics. I am, for the record, I don't think Tony Khan should be director of football, but I also think that Scott Parker isn't blameless. And it's not yin or yang argument. It is not black and white, pun intended. It is, there's shades of grey. Everybody is to blame, I think, and everybody should be held accountable tonight and for the last 35 games. I mean, Dave Jones at the end of the game said, Fulham are relegated at the first attempt, and actually it was our bloody 30th attempt. We've been trying all season.
Yeah, Matthew Dell here, with Steve Foley here on Twitter saying Mitrović being a £30 million frontman. I was having this discussion in the pub last night, right? That last season, at the beginning of last season, if you were to compare Patrick Bamford and Alexander Mitrović, you would have Mitrović so far ahead of Patrick Bamford, right? And I think this shows what a good coach can do to players, right? If Marcelo Bielsa was Fulham manager, Mitrović would probably have at least 15 goals this season, right? But Scott Parker isn't getting the best out of him. I understand Tony Khan is not blameless, and I've always been one of Tony Khan's biggest critics in regards to people on Fulhamish. But you can't just not think Parker. You can't just see, as Drew said, see Parker as blameless, because Mitrović, even 2 seasons ago when we were in the Premier League, he still scored 13 Premier League goals. You still were probably in the top 10, top 15, top goal scorers in the league that season, right? And this season, what's our top goal scorer got? 6 goals, 7 goals. Right?
Yeah.
I understand you can technically you could look at Chelsea and say, oh no, but they haven't got a player who's got more than 6 league goals. But I mean, they've got about 8 players who've got 6 or 7 goals, right? You can't just say, oh, Mitrović hasn't put the effort in. That penalty miss against Scotland had a big effect on him. The fact of the matter is, Scott Parker has, on this season, he has done good things, but he's also had very big results in regard to winning away at teams like Leicester, like Everton, like Liverpool. Like, we've won the same amount of games in the city of Liverpool this season we have in the city of London. Like, that's how stupid it is, right? And Scott Parker is not blameless, because he had to get more out of Mitrović this season. He hasn't scored since, what was it, Leeds away back in August.
He's got a Villa away.
Villa away. Apart from that goal, his last goal before that was back in August or September, whenever it was, right? Yeah, it's remarkable, and he's not blameless. He had to have gotten more out of players. I understand Loftus-Cheek he's probably overtaken Darren Bent as Fulham's most hated lone player of all time.
Yeah,
because at least Darren Bent got that equaliser last minute way at Old Trafford in 13-14. But
yeah,
for me, there's got to be questions on Scott Parker. There's rumours linking him with the Spurs job, for example, and I mean, what? I don't see what he's shown to say he's a better manager than, let's say Slaven Bilic was in charge of Fulham, right? Would he have done a better / worse job, Scott Parker? I don't think so, because I think this season has gone exactly how Fulham fans expected it to. It's gone, all right, it'll be better than 2 seasons ago, but we'll still go down. Like, we'll be more competitive, but we'll still go down. I think that's what happened, and I think, as we've mentioned, tonight's game, Jack, just completely summarise what Fulham's season has been like this season. Just not awful, but just no tooth going forward.
Yeah, it actually reminded me a lot of the Villa game at the start of the season when everyone lost their minds. It just, we created a little bit, but then again, no real clear-cut chances, and then a team with a better manager, a better know-how of how to get results, did a job over us. And I think your point about Mitrović, it's down to Parker's inexperience. If we had an experienced manager, one who's been around the block, could probably get so much more out of Mitrović than he has this season. And then it doesn't help by not playing him for most of the season just because he missed a penalty for Serbia against Scotland. Something else must have gone on behind the scenes for Mitrović. I mean, the fact that they mentioned tonight again that he came on and off with 10 minutes to go against Chelsea when they brought on Fabio Carvalho before. But look, Mitrović now, does he stay or does he go? Because there's an argument saying, he'll fire us back to the Premier League next season, and then Parker again won't use him in the Premier League. He's a goal scorer for his country. He's unbelievable.
Well, he's Serbia / Yugoslavia's all-time record goal scorer.
Yeah,
and I think he averages at least 1 in 2 for his country.
He got 5 in 3 the last international break.
That's what happens when you have someone like Dusan Tadic putting in good crosses for you.
Yeah, that's true.
It's a simple equation. Who do you need more to get back up to the Championship? Scott Parker or Alexander Mitrović? Because
the answer is Mitrović. I wouldn't say there's a debate in there. In the Championship, Mitrović is going to score you 20-25 goals at least. And Scott Parker last season, I'm not saying he got lucky by getting us up, right? I'm not saying that. But if you look after we lost those first 2 games after the restart, there was a serious chance that Cardiff could have genuinely knocked us out of the playoffs. Like, they're only 6 points behind us at that point. Yes, he got it spot on in the playoff final. I wouldn't say he got it spot on in the playoffs to a T, because that second leg against Cardiff was very, very edgy.
It was horrible. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you look at last season, right, Mitrović, as Drew mentioned, got 26 goals. Our next top goal scorer after that was Tom Kearney with 8. And Tom Kearney probably scored half of them in the first 10 games of the season. I'm thinking he scored. I remember he scored that, obviously, goals in Millwall, Blackburn come to mind. And that's the problem. Scott, it's not like we were free-flowing goal scorers last season. Leeds, Brentford and West Brom all scored at least probably 10, 15 more goals in this last season.
Yeah.
And that's it's not like the problems we've seen this season in regard to Fulham scoring goals is something new and that we haven't seen under Scott Parker before.
And he should, and obviously the obvious same thing is he should have been backed in the summer with a striker, and that was also true. Both things can be true. That Scott Parker should have been backed with a striker, and Scott Parker should have made more of the striker he already had. That both things are allowed to exist at the same time and be true. And the way you've seen it, the way we've played all season, it just doesn't suit Mitrović. Mitrović doesn't suit the system. But Leicester game was 10 games in, something like that, maybe 15, and we've not, in the whole sort of second half of that period, we've not once tried to make it work, and that is incumbent on Scott Parker. That particular part of this puzzle is on him.
Yeah, to wrap it up, because as I said, with all the talking points of where we Fulham go forward from here, why is Tony Khan still at the club, for example? We're not trying to deflect the blame off him. That isn't what this is about. We're just saying it's not simply Scott versus Tony, and there's plenty of talking points about Tony, which would be an entire hour-long video that Jack and Joe can probably do on Southwest 6 Essential next week. But I think we'll leave the sort of aftermath of what relegation means from here to the podcast. One point I do want to close on, and Christian's left comment on YouTube, which I've got on the screen down below, about the whole current system of loanees is rotten and doesn't set up stability in the long term. So for these final, 3 games of the season now, obviously you've got Southampton, Man United and Newcastle. Jack, what do you want to see? Do you want to see none of the loan players playing? Do you want to see an sort of an idea of what sort of team we could see next season, which could end up getting embarrassed 3 or 4-0 by a team like Man United? Or what do you want to see in these final 3 games?
I think first of all, Parker's a proud man, and he won't start playing the kids for the sake of it because we're already down. I think he'll try and get more points on the board before the season's out. I would like to see Fabio Carvalho start maybe every game, and maybe put Josh Onomar in there. And if Harrison Reed's back, I'd play a midfield 3 of Reed, Onomar, and Carvalho, just because I think that'd be really interesting to see. I think that could be something going forward. But no, I wouldn't play the likes of Madja. I'd probably play Tossett. I'd probably play Anderson. I'd probably, but Ruben Loftus-Cheek, no, I don't want to see him ever again in the Fulham shirt. I think there'll be a fairly strong team out there. I hope to see maybe Jasper on the bench, Stansfield maybe come in. I know it's a bit like he's very young, but literally, why not? I mean, we're playing Man United, Southampton, Newcastle. We're already down. Let's chuck in a couple of the youngsters. But like I said, Parker's a proud man, so he'll want to go out on a high. Yeah, for me, with certain loan players, I don't see the purpose in playing them for these final 3 games. For what it's not benefiting Fulham in any way. No, you're right.
Like, we're already down. We've got 3 games remaining. I want to see the players who want to play this, as you say. Ruben Loftus-Cheek, get out of here. To be honest, Josh Madja, I don't really. I want to see Mitrović get these run of games for the end of the season. I just want to see something that I understand. It's a good thing for us that the 2 teams who've gone up automatically are the 2 best, who are the best 2 teams in the Championship by far, squad-wise. So it's not like they could get a new manager and then there'd be a chance next season. And then Bournemouth could even win the playoffs next season. This season to go back up, which will be just the 3 going back up. I think so. From the season before COVID, the only change would be Sheffield United for Leeds. But Drew, what about you? What do you want to see? Because I do kind of want to see players who want to play foot. I want to see players who aren't just going to be here for the last 3 games and never seen again.
Yeah, I think obviously part of me right now just says I don't want to see any of the shites ever again. But the pragmatist and the logical side of my brain says, to me, it's quite simple. You play the players who have performed to a vague degree. I know it's all relative, and you don't play the ones who didn't. So you keep Areola in the sticks, you keep Anderson in central defence because as I said, they're not perfect, but they've done more good things than they have bad, probably. And then going to the other end of the pitch, you sack them all off. As far as I'm concerned, I don't see the point. And you start bringing in the Onomars and the players who have sort of going to be there next season. I think that's the way you do it. But as you've already said, Parker's too proud. I don't think he's going to do it. But we all know, like, you know, what did we finish on last time out? 7 wins. You know, and all of those, a lot of those games, after we were relegated. I wouldn't be surprised to see us suddenly now, the shackles of the pressure of Premier League are off, and we pick up, you know, a few more points. And that will just piss me off even more, to be honest.
Yeah, no, I think if we picked up, let's say, 4 points in the last 3 games, and in the running where it really mattered, we picked up 1 point out of 21. It would have been including today's game, and that 1 point at Arsenal. It's just that will probably be, as you mentioned, the most infuriating thing. But we'll leave the full-time live there for today. As he said, the podcast is getting recorded tomorrow, so we'll be out tomorrow with Sammy, Jack Collins, Ben Jarman, and Joe Sampson. So it should be interesting to listen. They'll be obviously deep diving into sort of the post-mortem of relegation as a whole, and seeing where Scott Parker goes from here, where Tony Khan goes from here, and what happens to Fulham next season. But all I've got to say is thank you very much to my guests in Drew Heatley.
Cheers.
And one only Jack Kelly.
Chin up, Fulham fans.
Well, I've been Don Betts. This has been Full-Time Live on a Fulhamish YouTube account, Twitter page, and Facebook page. And we'll see you guys next time. You whites.